Speed. Let us guide you through events and stories about global narratives and developments in geopolitics, diplomacy, foreign affairs, and world economy. Get factual and multi-angle perspectives on stories around the globe. Global Television brings you Diplomatic Perspective every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. with Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Diplomatic Perspective, the world in front of you.
Hello everyone, welcome to Diplomatic Perspective on Global Television. As a matter of fact, so many things happening from around the world, but today we want to look at something that the whole world have been talking about. Remember, you can't take it away from the reactions coming from the US and Israel strike on Iran, the capture or the death of the leader in Iran. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo, and of course, we will be looking at something very important today. But before then, it will interest you to know that, as a matter of fact, in late February 2026, that was just a few days ago, a dramatic escalation occurred, all right, in the Middle East that a lot of people are talking about when the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military strike on Iran. And of course, a campaign that quickly became one of the most significant confrontations involving the three countries in decades. This offensive, described by U.S. officials as Operation Epic Fury, that's the description, targeted Iran military infrastructure and also leadership. Among the most consequential developments was the confirmed death of Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, a figure who had dominated Iran politics since 1989. I know a lot of people were not born then. All right. But then the strike and the aftermath marked by Iran retaliation with missile and drone attacks across the region, global economic precautions, and of course, intense diplomatic responses have raised profound questions about the legality, strategic objectives, and future of international security. Because now you may be thinking it's all about Israel, US, and Iran. But what is the implication? We're talking about international, or let me just put it, global security issue here. But then, as the conflict unfolds, understanding its causes, actors, and regional impact is crucial for discussion. And that's part of the reason we're talking about it right here. A lot of people have commented, journalists are talking, academics, everyone is just talking about it, policymakers, international policy experts, international relations experts, everyone is talking about it. So today, we also want to look at this strategic topic. And of course, I have my guest joining me on the conversation today. He is an international relations expert and of course, an opinion leader too, if you ask me. I'm glad to have with me on Diplomatic Perspective this beautiful day, Emmanuel Ozomena. It's good to have you join us today on Diplomatic Perspective.
Ransom, and good evening, Nigerians.
Well, let's get into the issue right now. The Middle East tension. I don't know. When you were thinking it's coming to an end or it's subsiding, you hear something else again. And then you begin to think very wide. What were, on your own part, all right, what can we say were the stated objectives of the U.S.-Israel military operation against these Iranians, all right, that, you know, it's no longer a story. Their lives were taken in that strike. Let me just call it strike. So what do you think could be the rationale behind this?
Well, I think if you listen to the President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, in his speech to Americans, a few hours after the conflict, the strike happened, or you listen to the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, they had laid out their objectives clearly. They say, look, that they want to stop Iran from going on with their nuclear program. Because at the center of all this is the alleged nuclear enrichment by the Iranian government. And just last week, there was an ongoing negotiation with the Americans and the Iranians going on in Geneva with Oman, Oman trying to mediate between the two parties. I had thought they would have gone on to exhaust that diplomatic, engagement before they started. But again, on hindsight now, I was really also worried when, at the nick of the ongoing diplomatic engagement between the United States and Iran, I think just a week before the strike, the Israeli Prime Minister was in Washington for talks with President Donald Trump, if you recall. So, and in the joint press conference, they also spoke about that, about the possible, the ongoing talks, as well as the enrichment, the nuclear enrichment by Iran. But I thought it was going to be talk at that point in time, Georgia. But incidentally, it's now into a full-blown conflict. Just about a little bit, a few months ago, June 2025, you remember there was also an attempt the Israelis attacked Iran, and that led to, the 12-day war between the both of them. And the U.S. also stepped in at a point by, by testing their new B-5 Spirit. And we saw, what I thought as at then, because the target was the nuclear sites, the two nuclear sites of Iran, the confirmation by the U.S. president as well as the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was that, look, we have obliterated the Iranian missile site and all that. But I don't know what has happened. Is there any information that they know that there's secret enrichment? Because if you recall, in 2015, in fact, June 13, 2015, they concluded the entire negotiation. There's this big negotiation, the Iranian nuclear deal by former President Barack Obama. And that nuclear deal, everybody believed was going to be like some sort of, if you say, magic bullet to bring to an end the debate about whether Iran should go on with nuclear enrichment and what should happen and all that. But at the end of the day, incidentally, if you look at the tricky part of it, was that the former president Barack Obama negotiated this deal, and part of the deal was also to make a pathway for Iran. Iran has been under sanction for a long time, so they wanted, and there was this debate around people would need money, and resources to be able to buy medicine for people who are for Iranian citizens and all that. So it became some sort of a pathway so that they can sell, they can return to the global oil market and sell like any other member of OPEC and all that. But somehow, by the time, one of the tricky part of the deal was that the implementation was going to happen 16th of January 2016. And by 20th or thereabout, Obama was going to leave just 4 or 5 days before Obama leaves office. And that's when he wanted it to be implemented. So it's like Obama somehow, like Trump will argue, was creating a problem for his successor. Okay, you didn't want it to be implemented
during your own time.
You had a whole 8 years as the US president. And on the eve of your departure, you began some sort of a huge agreement, a huge treaty that was signed, supervised by over 6 nations. I mean, China, Germany, United Kingdom, EU, Russia, a huge. So it was like that silver bullet. But you were not ready to implement one part of it just 3 days into your tenure. Trump came and said, no, this is unacceptable, and cancelled it. And the moment Trump cancelled it, I knew, and everybody who is in the know, who watches international politics, knew that we're heading to another era of conflict. And back and forth, Trump couldn't come back in 2020 election. By 2021, he handed over. Biden came, didn't really want to move on with the deal towards, consolidating it. And Trump,
the action man just came.
Trump 2.0, that's where we are. And we're back to conflict. And the conflict at this point in time looks like something that is escalating.
Yes, it is.
That is having a more broader framework. Within the Middle East, and also involving the allies of America in the Gulf states. So I don't know how long this conflict will last, but like the US president say, look, has given a timeline, but would that timeline really be the timeline? Because you can only start a conflict. You don't know when and how it will end. But let's see what happens in the coming days.
The death of this political leader now, all right, and of course his allies, I'm talking about Ali Khamenei now. What do you think is going to be for the political landscape of Iran? Because he was, according to what is in the media space, you can see the reaction of some Iranians. And of course, US said this person is a terrorist. And of course, it's just like, whatever, if you want to say, if you want to go against him, then you are in trouble. So US in a way now are claiming, well, what they are doing is in favor of the Iranians. What do you think? What's your perspective?
Okay, just a little bit of context into history. Iran pre-1979 was not a theocracy. It was a free country where you had, it wasn't you didn't have the rule of the mullahs or the clerics until that 1979 revolution. So the 1979 revolution first toppled the leadership in Iran, which was by the Shah of Iran, who incidentally is a friend of the US. In fact, his family lived partly in Europe, and I think his son lives in America at the moment. So in the United States, you have a lot of Iranians who are there as refugees. As a result of the 1979 revolution, they had to leave the country across Europe, across Canada. You have all across Australia, New Zealand. You have Iranians everywhere who are roaming around. They are unable to go back to their country. On the streets of London, on the streets of Montreal, on the streets of New York, on the streets of across the world. Iranians who have been unable to go back are happy somehow that, look, perhaps this opens a window that we can go back to our motherland. So because they've been cut off from having access to their country. But the broader perspective is that, look, Trump didn't hide his intentions or the intentions of the US. Say, look, we're going to have a regime change. We're going to have a change or a government in place that we can deal with, an administration in place. So invariably, if you watch or if you had followed the street protests earlier on in January, that street protest for me should have given the Iranian authority some sort of a hindsight, an indicator of what was coming. But I think they undermined or underrated the capacity of the people on the street. And that same thing also, if you study the dynamics of, what you call the Arab Spring, it was a street action that started building up. Before you know it, quite a lot of young people coalesced around those actions. And it was moving from country to country. and the entire Middle East had some sort of new form of leadership. The biggest casualty became Egypt, where you had a full change in government. I mean, Mubarak, who was in government for a very long time, had to lose the presidency. Egypt went through a lot of reformation, politically. And where is it?
But is it paying them now?
Yeah, Egypt is a bit stabilized with the current president. I mean, President Sisi trying to build Egypt into a big economy. At the moment, Egypt, I think, is the second largest economy in Africa.
In Africa, yeah.
Yeah, after South Africa. But that's what couldn't have been possible under Mubarak autocracy. I mean, so what I think would happen is the political landscape of Iran might be on the verge of being redefined or reimagined. I mean, there's no doubt about it.
How can you liken what happened in Venezuela and what is happening in Iran now?
Okay, now in Venezuela, if you understand Venezuela was close to the United States until the coming of until the revolution, brought by the former president, and then by the time the president died, and you had his vice Nicolas Maduro, taking over, he didn't have that level of charismatic leadership to sustain it. Because the point about leadership, I mean, it's leaders should have clear things, clear objective they want to deliver for their people. And you deliver it, and then you also say, look, how long do I need to be here? Because there must be time to move on and hand over to the next generation of leadership. And part of the problem, I mean, with this entire governance structure across where you are having some sort of combustion could be, I mean, when you are there for 7 years, I mean, if the first Iranian spiritual leader was there for 10 years, between 1979 to 1989, and he passed, then the leadership shifted to Ali Khamenei. So he should have had some sort of a nudge and say, look, is it not time I leave the space for a new leadership? That new leadership, it doesn't matter.
But that doesn't happen in Africa.
No, it doesn't matter whether we're
talking about Venezuela now, but Africa, I know it doesn't
happen. What do you think should happen? Do you understand? Because I was thinking there should have been some sort of transition. So the only thing you had a spiritual leader who sits for life for 37 years, and you now have this semblance of electing presidents, even though it's not clearly democratic, but somebody will become a president. They had through some form of a succession plan and all that. But I'm thinking, if Iran say, look, we did away with a monarchy which was Shah of Iran, why don't we create a country where people can vote, have a proper democracy? But the challenge is that when you have a theocracy is assumed to have been ordained by God, the Almighty. So when it's ordained by Almighty, I mean, it becomes for life. It's like the African traditional kingship we had. When you have a king, the king stays for life. But given the changes in modern society, I mean, leadership must have an end, and then transition must happen. And then some other new people with ideas, blood and all that must set in, come and take over.
So what do you think is the global implication of all of this?
No, the global implication is that
it was Venezuela, now is Iran. Who is next?
That's the big question. I may not have all the answer, but if you ask me to guess, in my head, I can guess the next wife to be going to. Perhaps it's too early to. That would be speculating.
But then, does it have security implication, global security implication?
Absolutely. Because at the moment, I mean, across the world, there's this edge. Now, the stock market is going to be affected in the next. I mean, it's already responding to this crisis. Assuming the Iranian government, the remaining part of what you could call remnant of the Iranian leadership, because the Americans and the Israeli joint operation decimated top-level leadership of Iran. So what they are doing now is to top-level spiritual, political, and military leadership. So they are like rebuilding, but how long will it take to rebuild? And then can they really keep an Iran together if this campaign, military campaign by the United States and Israel continues, and perhaps some other Gulf states that Iran has tried to send some missiles to, either directly or through their proxy, because you are now talking about Hezbollah and Hamas, on the other end, because Israel and the US are accusing them of using proxies within the region to carry out their activities. So what happens if you have more people get into this conflict? I don't know how it will end, but the point is that it will really affect the global economy, global security dynamics, and what have you. But at the end of the day, somehow water will find its level.
Water will find its level. I think that's very fantastic and outstanding for me. Water will find its level. All right. I think we need to look at other issues right now, because as it is now, this is a joint strike. Remember, this is a joint strike. Now, the strike has happened. There are implications already, and with what is happening globally, let's look at the global stance of it now. Other leaders, is there anything you think other leaders, political leaders, especially in Africa, should learn from what is happening right now?
Well, I think there's a lot of lessons to learn. The first lesson to learn is to build participation with your people. Because one of the things that has happened over time in Africa is the leadership is usually aloof from the everyday realities of the people on the streets. Take, for instance, in Iran, the economy began to shrink as a result of sanctions, and the strain was becoming heavy. The Iranian currency became almost like a tissue paper, and that enabled the street protests you had earlier in the year and other calls for reform. And the thing has built into a crescendo. And Washington and Israel would have been doing some sort of collecting analytics and say, what does it look like? You heard Iranians, both in Iran and outside Iran, asking for help. That's not too good. It shows either the leadership were aloof from the feeling of the ordinary person on the street. How are they coping? Because if the leadership is not engaged with the people, that's very dangerous. You must find a way of getting engaged with your people. The leadership cannot be living in luxury while the people are living in penury. That's a very big lesson to learn. And I think the leaders across Africa should know when to quit the stage. I mean, across Africa now, you have sit-tight leaders all across, whether in West, Central, East Africa. I mean, a quick example is out there, our neighbors in Cote d'Ivoire, where Al-Hassan Ouattara, very respectable gentleman, worked as an international civil servant at IMF, the deputy managing director, comes in, found a way of struggling power with the sitting government through the support of the West and his friends. He was able to get it. Laurent Gbagbo ended up had charges slammed against him at the International Court of Justice in Hague. Finally, he was released after some years. And the constitution was clear: 2 terms or 5 years, you leave, and then you are off. And the guy refused to go. At the moment, he's serving a 4th term. I'm sure after the next few years, the guy is going to ask for another term. So leaders must know, okay, I met 2 tenure, so why would I extend it? I mean, is there any other thing I have not done? Any other thing I have not done, the next set of leaders could take it. Yeah, so for me, leaders should have focus, should be result-oriented, you deliver it within your term, and you move on.
All right, as it is right now, we are rounding up, but okay, we don't have time anymore, but then what is going to be your advice to the Iranians in just 1 minute?
Oh, well, I think Iranians know what to do. The important thing is keeping their country one, united, and in whole. However they want to do it, that's their decision.
All right. Well, the decision is all yours. That's the Iranians. And of course, there are lessons to take away from these actions for everyone, every leader in the world. Thank you very much, Emmanuel Ozomena, for joining us on Diplomatic Perspective today.
My pleasure.
We hope to have you again. This is interactive. Everyone, this is the size of Diplomatic Perspective for today. I want to thank you for joining us. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Bye-bye for now.
The world is fast changing and news breaks at lightning speed. Let us guide you through events and stories about global narratives and developments in geopolitics, diplomacy, foreign affairs, and world economy. Get factual and multi-angle perspectives on stories around the globe. Global Television brings you Diplomatic Perspective every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. with Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Diplomatic Perspective, the world in front of you.